To the Prime Minister. Question number 1, Miss Joyce Quinn.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today.
Joyce Quinn.
Does the Prime Minister recall that only 2 days ago he appealed to his party to close ranks? And can he explain to the House, therefore, why so many of his colleagues refused to support him in the poll tax debate last night? Furthermore, can he also explain why the British people, many of whom have suffered hardship as a result of this tax, should be expected to have any confidence in a Conservative Party when it is now clear that Tory MPs who originally voted to impose the poll tax on us clearly didn't believe in it all along? Yeah.
The honourable lady is slightly mistaken. A large number of my ministerial colleagues and backbenchers were in fact abroad unpaired yesterday. And my right honourable friend the Chief Whip saw no need to bring them back, for we are united.
Mr. Richard Holt.
May I say to my right honourable friend that it has not gone unnoticed on Teesside and in the northeast of England that on Tuesday night he supported the Tees and Hartlepool bill in the lobbies, something which the leader of the opposition did not oppose, and he will be most welcome, my right honourable friend, throughout the northeast of England when he makes his frequent visits there, unlike the leader of the opposition, who has occasionally dropped in for the Durham Miners' Gala and scarpered back to the south of England.
I am grateful to my honourable friend, and I look forward to visiting Langbath and the North East on many occasions.
Mr. Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, when he knows what he knows, why does the Prime Minister refuse to abolish the poll tax now?
Unlike the right honourable gentleman and his party, who have, on the latest count, changed their policy on this matter on 52 occasions, we are conducting a comprehensive review to determine how best to deal with
it. Will the Prime Minister confirm for the British people that the poll tax will still be in place at the time of the next general election?
My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, made it perfectly clear yesterday that we were undertaking a fundamental review. A fundamental review is what we will undertake, and we will see how long that will take. For the right honourable gentleman, I think the country will notice that the right honourable gentleman, although he professes to oppose it, will make no constructive moves towards a constructive dialogue to correct it.
Mr. Speaker, when the right honourable gentleman's proposal last night didn't even convince his honourable friends, how does he seriously expect it to convince anybody else? Now will he answer the question? Will he confirm that the poll tax will still be in place at the next general election, yes or no?
The right honourable gentleman might himself confirm that under his own plans he has made it absolutely clear that the time scale for change may be considerable.
Mr. Dudley Fishburn.
Will my right honourable friend win the hearts? Will my right honourable friend win the hearts of Londoners today by endorsing the proposals for leasehold reform that were put forward last week by the Lord Chancellor? Does he accept that the draft bill for commonhold will allow London's flat dwellers to own their individual flats on freehold for the first time, thereby ending the injustices of leasehold that make so many London flat dwellers into second-class homeowners?
As my honourable friend will know, over the last 10 years we have done more to increase owner occupation for the personal security that offers than any previous government. And it is very noticeable that those are not the policies of the party opposite.
Ashdown.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister realise that we welcome the proposal made last night for discussions with opposition parties on the replacement of the poll tax? We in this party will contribute constructively to those discussions. We will not play parliamentary games whilst millions out there are suffering from the effects of this unjust tax. In that context, Mr. Speaker, may I ask the right honourable gentleman to remember the promise which he made in 1974 in his election address, in which he said that he would abolish the rate.
Order. I don't think we need the visual signs.
In which he said that he would abolish the rates.
I think the honourable gentleman make his point without order. I think the honourable gentleman make his point without the visual signs.
In which he said that he would abolish the rates and replace it with a tax related to the ability to pay. Does he still agree with that? And does he realise the only tax properly related to the ability to pay is local income tax?
Upon the last point, upon the last point, the right honourable gentleman knows we are considering the whole question of local taxation at the moment. On the first point, I share what I think is implicit in what the right honourable gentleman said, that the House of Commons need not necessarily be a perpetual cockpit of confrontation. I regret very much that honourable gentlemen opposite, despite all they have said, have no intention of helping to determine common principles for the role of local government. If they don't wish to, that is a matter for them. Others will.
Mr. Michael Lord. It's for order. Mr. Michael Lord.
As our new Prime Minister will have a considerable list of problems to deal with on taking over his appointment, could I urge him to bring to the top of that list the problem of haemophiliacs who've been infected with the AIDS virus through no fault of their own? Could I tell my right honourable friend that he would earn the undying gratitude of the victims, their families and this House of Commons if he can take steps to bring about an out-of-court settlement as quickly as possible?
As my honourable friend knows, my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has previously made clear that we're spending a considerable amount of money to deal with this particular problem, and it is one we will consider to keep we will continually keep under review.
Mr. David Hinchcliffe.
So, Mr. Speaker.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Mr. David Hinchcliffe.
Is the Prime Minister aware that within the last 12 months, a baby has been abducted from a hospital in London, an 11-year-old girl has been raped in a hospital in Surrey, a 77-year-old woman has been indecently assaulted in a hospital in Leeds, and last week 2 doctors were murdered in a hospital in Wakefield. Bearing in mind that the government are committed to spending around £200 million on allowing hospitals to opt out and a mere £20,000 on the question of hospital security, does the Prime Minister really feel he's got his priorities right on this matter?
Yeah. I think the honourable gentleman should bear in mind that the question of the direct management of hospitals at the moment lies with the health authorities, or in the case of National Health Service trusts, with the management of those trusts in due course. I'm sure they will take note of what the honourable gentleman says.
Cormac.
Is my right honourable friend aware that there really would be almost universal delight and gratitude if before Christmas the problem of the haemophilia AIDS victims could be solved by adequate compensation being paid without liability being admitted?
As my honourable friend knows, we have already made a payment into the Macfarlane Trust. I do understand the sensitive nature of this matter, but I've nothing further to add on it today.
Mr. Chris Mullin.
3, Mr. Speaker.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Chris Mullin.
Is the Prime Minister aware that of the 181 children who left Pennywell Comprehensive School in my constituency earlier this year, only 10 found their way into some form of employment, 32 went to higher education, and of the remaining 150 or so, half went on to government training schemes which will lead in due course to the dole, and the other half went directly. And the other half went directly onto the dole. What hope can he offer the children of Sunderland that life in John Major's Britain will... What hope can he offer the children of Sunderland that life in John Major's Britain will be any different to life in Margaret Thatcher's Britain?
As the honourable gentleman knows, there have been considerable improvements in every aspect of life over the last 10 years, and that will continue. On the specific point that the honourable gentleman made, as he knows at present, a larger percentage of our youngsters now go into further education than ever before. There is a higher percentage of our population in work than ever before, and there are a higher level of opportunities and training than ever before, and that bodes very well for the young people of Sunderland, as indeed for the young people everywhere in this country.
Dr. Graham Riddick.
Mr. Speaker, would my right honourable friend care to comment on the fact that there are many local education authorities, including my own of Kirklees, which are holding back far more of their education budget for central administration than was originally intended by this government? Now that the government has announced it intends to carry out a full review of the structure of local government, doesn't he think that we should consider taking the control of education out of the hands of local authorities and giving it to the schools themselves?
I have considerable sympathy with that particular point of view, not least because of the enormous success of local management for schools. And I hope education authorities will release as much of the money as possible to go directly into the classroom.
Mr. Chris Smith. Number 4, sir.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Chris Smith.
Can the Prime Minister tell us whether, as a result of the frantic trawling for options and ideas that is now underway in the Department of the Environment, there will be any reduction whatsoever in the poll tax bills that people receive in April of next year? Or will the amounts still be precisely the same that they were always going to be?
As for trawling for options, I remind the honourable gentleman that his party have had 52 changes of mind on local government. That is not so much a U-turn as a merry-go-round.
Mr. Nicholas Winston.
Would my right honourable friend accept that manufacturing industry is the only genuine source of non-inflationary growth? And that high interest rates, the continuing use of high interest rates, are damaging to both investment and competitiveness? And will my right honourable friend look again at an alternative industrial manufacturing strategy?
As my honourable friend knows, the central core of economic policy is to bear down on inflation. And as that reduces, and I expect that will reduce, and that is the general view of external commentators as well, the options may well exist for a reduction in interest rates, but I can give no indication when that may be.
Mr. Andrew Bennett.
Number 5, sir.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Would the Prime Minister agree that given that 2 of the Polaris submarines are no longer seaworthy, that the other 2 were on the Clyde earlier this week? He's the first Prime Minister for 20 years not to have had a nuclear deterrent at his fingertips. Would he agree that that did not cause him or the country any problems? Would he now agree that rather than trying to patch up the remaining Polaris submarines, he should actually abandon the whole programme and give a clear lead to the non-proliferation talks in January that we want to have a non-nuclear world?
Our nuclear capacity remains a deterrent and remains an important part of our defence.
Mr. Speaker, as my former area whip, up until now has no doubt been the Prime Minister's greatest claim to distinction. Would he like to make a comment on the possibility of some change being brought about to the hours that this House works? And would he like to tell me why I remain sceptical that, having had this matter raised on many occasions in the 20 years I have been in this House, I remain sceptical, and what can he do to reassure me?
Well, I have fond memories of being my honourable friend's whip some years ago. Insofar as the hours of working in this House is concerned, that is essentially a matter for the Procedure Committee and for members of the House themselves, and I think each of them would have their own individual views. If the House were to express views, I do not myself think I would stand against them.
Business